right, so this is going to be another. Wow. Eating chili here, excuse me. Movie review. This is going to be another movie review. This one's called The Enforcer 1976. This is my least favorite Dirty Harry movie. Giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Thought the other ones were better, but this one wasn't too bad. Clint Eastwood is Dirty Harry the Enforcer. Movie poster looks lame. The Enforcer is a 1976 U.S. action thriller film. Oh, by the way, this is going to be another Karate Man recommendation. The third in the Dirty Harry film series, directed by James Fargo. It stars Clint Eastwood as Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan, Tyne Daly as Inspector Kate Moore. She was in the Cagney and Lacey television show, which I never used to watch back in the 80s. And Deverin Bookwalter as criminal mastermind Bobby Maxwell. It was also the last film in the series to feature John Mitchum as Inspector Frank DiGiorgio. So I guess I better include John Mitchum in here. In the movie credits, because I didn't even notice him in the previous Dirty Harrys. John Mitchum. All right. John Mitchum. Save. All right. The film is memorable for containing more comedic dialogue than any other entry in the Dirty Harry franchise, as well as offering a more fleshed out partner for protagonist Callahan. In Marin County, 2 gas company workers are lured by a scantily clad woman to a remote spot in Mill Valley, where both are killed by Bobby Maxwell. Maxwell leads a group of men and women calling themselves the People's Revolutionary Strike Force, PRSF, who pose as a terrorist organization to conceal the true purpose of their criminal activities. So it's unclear why they shoot these 2 guys. I guess that's one way of stealing a company van. Inspector Harry Callahan and his partner Frank DiGiorgio deal with a con artist faking a heart attack at a restaurant before being called in to deal with a holdup at a liquor store. When the robbers take hostages and they demand a police car so they can escape, Callahan drives his into the front of the store and he uses the resulting chaos to gun them down. Callahan's superior, Captain Jerome McKay, angrily reprimands him for use of excessive force. So we went from Pinochet Callahan to Gandhi Callahan and back to Pinochet Callahan again. He injures the hostage and he causes $14,379 in damages, which is nothing when you compare it to the the damage that was done in what was that movie? Oh man. Um Die Hard. Die Hard had more property damage. As punishment, he is transferred to the personnel department where he is forced to participate in the interview process for promotions. Callahan is dismayed to learn that under the mayor's new affirmative action rules, several of the promotions must go to women, including Kate Moore, a desk officer with no field experience. The PRSF uses a stolen gas company van and uniforms to steal M72 law rockets, M16 rifles, a taser, and other weapons from a warehouse. DiGiorgio and another officer catch them in the act, but Maxwell fatally wounds DiGiorgio with a knife, runs the other cop over with the van, and kills one of his own followers despite her only having minor wounds. Callahan is transferred back to homicide squad, but Callahan is distressed to find out that Moore is his new partner. While watching the U.S. Army demonstration of the law rocket on a firing range, Callahan notices Moore standing right behind the rocket, and he pulls her out of the way of potentially lethal back blast. Callahan tells Moore he is doubtful of her ability to perform in dangerous situations, and he warns there that a failure in such an incident could endanger both of their lives. All right, production company, the Malpaso Company, distributed by Warner Brothers, release date December 2nd, 1976, running time 96 minutes, country United States, language English, budget of $9 million, and a box office of $46.2 million. Callahan and Moore are leaving an autopsy at the Hall of Justice when a bomb explodes in the bathroom. The inspectors chase down and they capture the bomber, and they meet Big Ed Mustafa, the leader of a black militant group to which the bomber formerly belonged. Although Callahan makes a deal with Mustafa for information, McKay arrests his followers and him for the PRSF's crimes, damaging Callahan's credibility. Callahan angrily refuses to participate in a televised press conference in which the publicity-seeking mayor intends to commend Moore and him for Mustafa's arrest. McKay then suspends Callahan and takes his badge, but Moore informs Callahan that she will continue to help him in any way she can, and the two share drinks in a sign of mutual respect. They were supposed to go out for beers, but they end up drinking apple juice. The PRSF ambushes the mayor's motorcade as he leaves a Giants game at Candlestick Park with artificial turf. I didn't even know Candlestick Park had artificial turf back in 1976. I think I started going to the games in 78 or 79, around there. Anyway, they kill his bodyguard and aide at taking his hostage with a ransom of $5 million. Callahan bails out on Mustafa, who gives him the name of a priest who mentioned Maxwell. More than saves Callahan's life when Wanda, disguised as a nun, tries to shoot him in the back. The priest reveals that the PRSF members are squatting on Alcatraz Island. Callahan distracts the gang while Moore frees the mayor, but Maxwell kills her before she can get off the island. Callahan avenges Moore by cornering Maxwell in the old guard tower and blowing it up with the law rocket. And that's pretty much the movie right there. Pretty cool ending. It's got some full frontal nudity. It's got some affirmative action blowback. And you've got the cool ending and the what else? Oh, Henry Callahan is back as the real Dirty Harry, not the fake one from the previous movie. The nude scene is kind of funny because it has nothing to do with the plot. They're shooting a porno flick with some big-time orgy, hot-looking Chinese babe with her hairy beaver. And she was yummy. We would have liked to see more scenes like that, but it was totally irrelevant to the script. Anyways, the first script was written in 1974 by two young San Francisco area film students, Gail Morgan Hickman and S.W. Schur, with the title Moving Target. After seeing Dirty Harry and Magnum Force, the two fledgling writers decided to pen a screenplay of their own featuring the character of Inspector Harry Callahan, inspired by the Patty Hearst kidnapping in 1974. The storyline had Inspector Harry Callahan going up against a violent militant group reminiscent of the Symbionese Liberation Army. In the script, the militants kidnap and ransom the mayor of San Francisco. After the screenplay was finished, Hickman visited Eastwood's Carmel restaurant, the Hog's Breath Inn, and they approached Eastwood's business partner, Paul Lippman, asking if he would give their effort to Eastwood. Lippman was initially hesitant, but finally agreed. Although Eastwood thought the script needed work, he liked the concept, particularly the priest with militant leanings, and the portrayal of black militants, which was based on the Black Panther Party. Warner Brothers, meanwhile, eager to capitalize on the success of the two Dirty Harry films, had hired seasoned screenwriter Sterling Silliphant to write a new Harry Callahan story. Silliphant wrote a script called Dirty Harry and More, in which the Callahan character was teamed up with a female Asian American partner named Moore. Eastwood liked the female partner angle, but he felt the script spent too much time on character and did not have enough action. Eastwood then showed the Hickman-Schur script to Silliphant, and Silliphant agreed to rewrite it. Silliphant wrote the script through late 1975 and early 1966. Silliphant delivered his draft to Eastwood in February 1976. While Eastwood approved, he believed the emphasis was still too much on the character relationships rather than the action, and he was concerned the fans might not approve. He then brought in screenwriter Dean Reisner, who had worked on the scripts of Dirty Harry and Coogan's Bluff, to do revisions. Recurring characters Lieutenant Bressler Harry Guardino and Frank Giorgio Mitchum reprised their roles for the last time in a Dirty Harry film. There's another name that I forgot to mention. Harry Guardino. All right. We got it in there. Where were we? All right. Recurring characters Lieutenant Bressler, Harry Guardino, and Frank DiGiorgio Mitchum reprised their roles for the last time in a Dirty Harry film. Bressler was Callahan's boss in the first film of the series. DiGiorgio appeared in the previous two, but he dies in this film. A new character, Captain Jerome McKay, Dillman, was introduced as Callahan's superior officer. Dillman played a similar role, Captain Briggs, in Sudden Impact. Albert Popwell also returns as a character in this film, having played the bank robber in the first film of the series and Sidney the Pimp in Magnum Force. So we got a couple more names to add. Bradford Dillman. And Albert Popwell. All right. The character of Kate Moore, Harry's female partner, went to Tyne Daly. Daly's casting was initially uncertain, given that she turned down the role 3 times. She objected to the way her character was treated in parts of the film, and she showed concern that 2 members of the police force falling in love on the job was problematic, given that they would be putting their lives in jeopardy by not reaching peak efficiency. Daly was permitted to read the drafts of the script developed by Reiner, and she had significant leeway in the development of her character, although after seeing the film at the premiere, she was horrified by the extent of the violence. Regarding Callahan's relationship with Moore, Eastwood stated, "I didn't see Dirty Harry going for a Hollywood-type glamour girl. He's the kind of guy that when he dated somebody, it was probably a secretary or receptionist somewhere, somebody he would meet along the way. Tyne Daly was perfect for the part. It starts out like great love should. It starts out by earning respect, and she earns his respect, and you think, could go another step." When production began, the working title of the film was Dirty Harry 3. In keeping with the other sequels of the time, Eastwood felt that the film needed a title of its own, and in the middle of production came up with The Enforcer. After his disputes with Ted Post on the set of the previous Dirty Harry installment, Eastwood fully intended to direct The Enforcer himself. Eastwood's replacement of Philip Kaufman on The Outlaw, Josie Wales, and the subsequent need to handle post-production on that film left him without enough time to prepare himself to direct The Enforcer. As a result, Eastwood gave the director's chair to James Fargo, his longtime assistant director, who made his debut as full director on this film. Eastwood had the final say on all the critical decisions, but since the two men were far more familiar with each other's working styles than Eastwood had been with Ted Post, they rarely butted heads during production. Filming commenced in the San Francisco Bay Area in the summer of 1976. Eastwood was initially still dubious about the quantity of his lines and preferred a less talkative approach, sometimes perhaps embedded in him by Sergio Leone. The film ended up considerably shorter than the previous Dirty Harry films, and it was cut to 95 minutes for its running time. The music score for The Enforcer was written by Jerry Fielding, making The Enforcer the only Dirty Harry film without a score by Laszlo Schifrin. The film was originally intended to be the last Dirty Harry film of a trilogy. A poll conducted by Warner Brothers in 1983 led the development of a fourth film, Sudden Impact, and the resurrection of the film series. Eastwood never intended to make more Dirty Harry films, but private agreements with the studio allowed him to do more personal films in exchange for doing subsequent sequels. Robert Elder of the New York Times was negative, stating, "Money, the big name of Clint Eastwood, a lot of gore and howling sirens, and an urge to rail at various liberal notions are not enough to make even a passable movie out of The Enforcer." Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times was positive and called it the best of the Dirty Harry movies at striking a balance between the action and the horror and the humor, Sometimes in the previous films we felt uneasy, laughing in between the bloodshed, but this time the movie's more thoughtfully constructed and paced. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune gave the film 2 out of 4 and wrote, "The major disappointment in The Enforcer is its disjointed script with its relative absence of thrills." Another criticism he had was that Harry's opponents were now cartoon idiots, in contrast with the memorable Scorpio from the first Dirty Harry film. Arthur D. Murphy of Variety indicated that Dirty Harry format seems to be falling apart at the seams, concluding the next project for this particular mold had better shape up or give up. Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times called it Clint Eastwood's third and arguably best Dirty Harry movie with a good cast and unprecedented humor that results from the film's tonic, highly developed sense of absurd that runs through its fast-paced mayhem. Gary Arnold of the Washington Post wrote that the film lacks both the effective gimmicks and the slam-bang kinetic force of its predecessors, elements that once generated some melodramatic heat have cooled into inside jokes and aged into venerable wheezes. Janet Maslin stated in Newsweek that the Enforcer shows very little understanding of the charismatic single-mindedness that made Clint Eastwood's Inspector Harry Callahan such a crowd pleaser in the first place. Each of the 2 sequels, the first was Magnum Force, had paid less attention to Harry's righteous indignation than to the mayhem he generates. The gore has now become so gratuitous that Harry has begun to look like a trigger-happy fool. Eastwood was named Worst Actor of the Year by the Harvard Lampoon, and the film was criticized for its level of violence. Eastwood's performance in the third installment was overshadowed by positive reviews given to Daly as a strong-minded female cop, with which she would follow up in a similar role as Detective Mary Beth Lacey in the television series Cagney and Lacey. Daly received rave reviews, with Marjorie Rosen remarking that Malposo had invented a heroine of steel, and Gene Holscher of The Hollywood Reporter praising Eastwood for abandoning his ego in casting such a strong female actress in his film. Rotten Tomatoes retrospectively gave the film a score of 69% based on reviews from 39 critics, 27 of whom were judged to be positive and 12 negative. Its critic consensus reads, though the slightest hints of series fatigue begin to emerge, The Enforcer delivers riveting action and better human humor than its predecessors. Upon release in December 1976, The Enforcer was a major commercial success, grossing $8,851,288 in its first week, a record for a Clint Eastwood film at that time. Lamestream, it grossed a total of $46,236,000 in the United States and Canada, making it the ninth highest grossing film of 1976. Overall, this figure made it the most profitable of the Dirty Harry series for 7 years until the release of Sudden Impact in 1983. Sorry, I'm munching on some chili. I'm a little hungry. All right. The Enforcer, 1976, rated R, 1 hour 36 minutes. It gets a whopping 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb. I'm rating it a little higher, 8 out of 10. 52,000 ratings on IMDb. Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan reluctantly teams up with rookie Inspector Kate Moore to foil a terrorist organization made up of disgruntled Vietnam veterans. More like this: Magnum Force, Sudden Impact, The Deadpool, Dirty Harry. In other words, the 4 Dirty Harry movies. When Harry meets Uhuru leader Mustafa Albert Popwell, he asks, "Where do I know you from?" Popwell played a bank robber in Dirty Harry, a pimp in Magnum Force, and Horace in Sudden Impact. He didn't appear in the Deadpool. The U.S. Army sergeant demonstrating the M72 light anti-tank weapon stated the projectile can penetrate armor, plating up to 3/4 of an inch. M72 warheads in real life can penetrate up to 5 inches of armor plating. Harry Callahan is quoted as saying, "Personnel, that's for a-holes." Captain McKay says, "I was in personnel for 10 years. Harry Callahan says, "Yeah." After Callahan learns that he's being transferred to personnel, Henry Callahan's character name becomes Harry Callahan in the Italian version and titles because the local distributor thought it sounded better. Callahan with the G. Featured in sneak previews: A Star is Born, King Kong, The The 7% Solution, The Enforcer Network, Rocky, Nickelodeon, Silver Streak. Release date December 22nd, 1976. Country of origin United States. Language English, also known as Sin Medio a la Muerte. Filming locations Alcatraz Island, San Francisco Bay, California, USA. Production companies Warner Brothers, the Malpaso Company. Runtime 1 hour 36 minutes. Color mono sound mix. Aspect ratio 2.35 to 1. Here's a less flattering review. On IMDb. From Chivy Liver 80, dated April 3rd, 2003. Chivy Liver 80 gives it a 7 out of 10, calls it the dirtiest Harry of them all. The movie contains the tradition of Clint Eastwood making great movies. The Enforcer is not the best of the Dirty Harry films, but it isn't the worst of them either. The Deadpool is. I disagree with that assessment. Don't get me wrong, they're all great flicks and I enjoy all of them, but there is a best to worst order to these movies. The Enforcer is filled with Harry's dry humor and tough talking dialogue. 1976 San Francisco is filmed beautifully and provides a great background, as in all the Dirty Harrys. The music is suitably funky. I'll agree with that. A bit dated but funky. Tyne Daly does a good job as Harry's spunky new partner. Tyne Daly wasn't bad looking in 1976 either. I'm sure Tyne misses those days. Bottom line, must have this movie to complete the Dirty Harry collection. It's a good tough cop movie on its own, but I suggest get all of these films, get the box set on DVD. All right. Well, that's the end of my The Enforcer review. Let's go down the pike to see what movies I'm going to be watching. I only have 2 more: Footprints of God with Stephen K. Ray. So I'll watch that one next. Take a little nappy poo first. I met with my lawyer, and we're going to go with the $375,000 settlement recommendation. So that should be good. He's going to waive $11,000 in expenses, which is nice. Anyway, I doubt that the other side will accept it. But anyways, I guess if it goes to trial next year, I got to take a week off. Here we go. Hard Target 1993 is the first movie on my list. And I'll watch Footprints, and that should be the last of it. Then we've got Haunts 1976 and Sudden Impact 1983. Those are the next 3 movies coming down the pike. Laters.